Greetings, Inland Empire. This is your latest edition of the Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pierceall, and we're going to be updating you on all the latest political happenings in both Riverside and San Bernardino counties. And we've got quite the fun show for you today. We're going to be talking about the Coachella Music Festival. Yes, that Coachella Musical Festival, which is political this year. And we'll also be talking about all the intense amount of mailers that you're going to be receiving in your mailbox. And finally, the Riverside Council race, particularly the mayor race, that's going to be happening because it is the end of an era, the end of the leverage era. So first off, the Coachella Music Festival. Normally not very political, although you've got your Rage Against the Machine every once in a while, and you've got sometimes Woodstock is a political festival, but this year the Coachella Music Festival is going to be a no-fly zone, particularly because U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer has asked the FAA to monitor the airspace around the festival. And we have a very special guest for you today. We've got the music aficionado and music reporter, Vanessa Franco. Vanessa, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
And can you explain why is there going to be a no-fly zone?
You're never going to believe it, but Obama confetti!
Obama confetti?
Yes.
Okay.
Back in 2008, it was an election year, much like this year, and while there, Roger Waters set off a giant pig above the crowd, but in addition to that, a plane dropped a lot of confetti that had Obama 2008 on it. And when they did that, it landed in people's swimming pools in their yards. They were upset. Apparently, people were frightened. They told the police chief. Police chief went to Senator Boxer, who went to the FAA. And now, if you are within 2 miles of the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festivals or the Stagecoach Country Music Festivals, Empire Polo Club in Indio, you are going to have to stay above 2,000 feet. A lot of marketing companies, record companies, fly planes low to get their message out there. That's not going to happen this year.
So no Romney 2012 confetti, no Obama 2012 confetti, nothing.
No, but what you could see, however, is they've made no allegations and regulations about what could happen on the ground. So if you want to bring a giant inflatable pig like Roger Waters did in 2008, perhaps that will still be allowed.
Fantastic. The FAA cannot oversee inflatable pigs.
No, because when pigs fly, I don't think there's any regulations for that.
Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to clean up the confetti and come right back with Ben Goad in Washington and Jim Miller in Sacramento to talk about all of the mailers that you are going to start receiving in your mailbox. So now that the confetti is cleaned up, we are going to turn to elections now, and Ben Goad, our reporter in Washington, and Jim Miller in Sacramento have teamed up on a story that's going to be appearing this Sunday in regards to the election and how much mail you should expect to receive this coming election. So everybody usually receives a lot of mail. This year is going to probably be a little bit more. So first off, Jim, tell us a little bit about the situation and why this year is going to be different.
Right, and it's not going to be just mail. It's going to be TV ads, people coming to your door or voters' doors, and it's because really two things. Just the demographics of the region have changed over the years, and it's more diversity, more Latino registration, and so that has made the area. So that's had one effect, and then the other effect is that the redrawing of political lines last year was done by an independent commission as opposed to politicians who did it in 2001.
So there's brand new districts with potentially brand new candidates. So areas that have never had candidates or seats before, and so now these people are vying for these areas, correct?
Correct. And that's because of the population gains that the region saw during the 2000s. There's just more population means more seats, and in several of those seats that are going to be competitive this year, there was no candidate, there was no incumbent office holder who was already there. So that's made the race wide open.
Gotcha. And Ben, you spoke with a professor in political sciences and also can talk a little bit about what the differences are this year. Tell us a little bit about, why folks should be expecting this inundation of political stuff.
Right. Well, as you guys mentioned, there are really two different key differences here. First, the new district lines that Jim mentioned. Basically, that means that candidates, even the incumbents, are going to be running new districts that contain new territory and new voters. And second, there's a new open top two primary system in California this year, which means that voters have a chance to vote for candidates who are not from their own party in a primary, and the top two finishers go on to the general, regardless of what party they're in. So you could have two Democrats or two Republicans. And as you mentioned, I talked to Jack Pitney, who's a politics professor at Claremont McKenna College, about what these changes will mean for inland area voters.
Okay, and let's take a listen to what he had to say.
The mailboxes will groan under the weight of political pamphlets and flyers. Because you have, number one, a lot of politicians introducing themselves to new constituencies, and number two, a top two primary system where candidates have to reach beyond their own partisans. In a closed primary, candidate need only worry about registered Republicans or registered Democrats, but with this system, anybody on the voter rolls is a potential supporter or opponent.
Great, and thanks for that insight. Curious, one of those congressional races in particular is getting quite large. Tell us a little bit about the congressional race for, is it congressional race seat 10 or seat 8? Sorry.
Seat 8, yeah, and it is getting pretty wild out there. This is the seat that goes from Yucaipa up across the San Bernardino Mountains and the high desert and all the way into Mono and Inyo counties. And there are now a total of 13 candidates vying for that seat, which is definitely the most of any area race, and we think statewide. It's a heavily Republican-leaning seat, and most of the candidates are in fact, Republicans, including Assemblyman Paul Cook and San Bernardino County Supervisor Brad Mitzelfeld. One interesting maneuver to watch in this race is former Assemblyman Anthony Adams' decision to run without any party affiliation. He was a Republican when he was in the Assembly, and now he's running without a party and with 10 Republicans in the race. So I think he's hoping they'll split up the GOP vote, and he'll tap into independent or decline the state voters, as well as some of those who are fed up with both parties here in Washington.
So suffice to say, we have a whole lot of candidates, a whole lot of races. It's also a presidential year, and so folks at home should certainly be expecting phone calls, mailers, and just a lot of intense campaigning for their vote this year, it sounds like. Thanks, Ben and Jim. One thing they won't expect, though, is confetti being falling on the ground because of the FAA no-fly zone. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Next, we're going to talk about another race that is becoming quite a large field of folks, the Riverside mayoral race with Alicia Robinson. Welcome back. We heard quite a bit about how many mailers and phone calls and political campaigning materials you're going to be receiving shortly, and some of those, actually a lot of those campaign materials are probably going to come from the Riverside mayoral race. And here to talk with us about that race is Alicia Robinson. Alicia, thanks so much for being here today. She is our expert in Riverside city politics, and it's an end of an era because Mayor Ron Loveridge no longer going to be mayor, and there is a very big candidate list. The June 5th ballot was just finalized last week. Tell us, who is going to be on this ballot? Who's running for Riverside mayor?
Well, you're right. We do have a long ballot. We've got 7 people running. We have former Councilman Ed Adkisson, who has a civil engineering firm. Ward 3 Councilman Rusty Bailey, who just won re-election in June to the council seat. Peter Benavidez, he's the CEO of a nonprofit that helps blind and visually impaired people. Aurora Chavez, who's retired from the Alvord School District and is a volunteer for a number of organizations. Ward 1 Councilman Mike Gardner, who also just won re-election in June. Ward 2 Councilman Andy Melendrez, so we've almost half the council running. And Melendrez is wrapping up a second term. And then Devon Petrozzillo, who's a teacher of at-risk students, who has recently been a very vocal critic of the city administration and spending.
That is quite the field of candidates. And curious because, again, it's the end of an era. It's a big list of folks who would take the reins of Riverside. What do you expect to be the big issues going forward?
Well, in the first place, with Mayor Ron Loveridge stepping down after 5 terms, Really, this is going to be an opportunity for the candidates to either try to sort of continue with the efforts that were so successful for Loveridge, or to really reshape what the role of the mayor is. Also, in what are continuing to be lean budget times for the city, the candidates will be likely to talk about how to manage the city on its limited budget and whether they need to be making cuts.
We'll expect to see quite a bit of campaign materials landing in your mailbox, in your inboxes, on your voicemails, etc. And again, thank you for joining us for Political Empire this week, and we'll see you next week with the latest happenings in the Inland Empire.